Welcome to the Heidi Thorne Show. I'm your host, Heidi Thorne, and in this podcast, I share my real-world self-publishing and small business experience with you. So let's get started with today's show. Now, today is going to be a bit of a rant again, but it's going to be on a topic that is hotly debated in a lot of the self-publishing author forums, and that is Kindle Direct Publishing versus IngramSpark. Which one's better? Now, one of the other things I'm seeing in a lot of the forums is that there's authors who do both. And I just have to shake my head a little bit. Why are you doing both? Now, there's some justification for that, but I'm going to say that you should probably pick and stick with one. Choose your self-publishing platform carefully before you publish so that you don't have to do these other publishing adventures and it gets very confusing. So, well, let's compare the two. First of all, let's talk about Kindle Direct Publishing. It's no secret that I am an Amazon and KDP fangirl. So, even with that said, I am going to give a very fair and balanced perspective on this as much as I can. Because there are some times where IngramSpark really is the better choice. So I'm going to be very fair with both. But some of the big advantages of Kindle Direct Publishing are, one, it's free. Hello. Why would you want to choose anything that isn't going to help preserve your royalties and profits and the money you make? Because as I have talked about over and over and over again, you're not going to make a lot of money from self-publishing. I mean, there's a few that do, but it's pretty rare. And so, you certainly want to choose something that's going to help you make or keep more money. So KDP is free. And they offer a bunch of free tools and resources. Now, they do offer templates, of course, for your book layout, and they're in Microsoft Word, and they do take Word files, so that makes it even easier. You don't have to learn Adobe InDesign or any of those other graphic layout programs. You can do it in Word, so that's a good thing. But more recently, as I've talked about in other episodes, they have the Kindle Create tool, although it's really, I think it's a software program, which now you can create your Kindle ebook and your print book with the exact same file. And the results are really pretty good, even though this is in early access beta mode. I've done most of my recent print books with Kindle Create because I want to keep testing it out and see how it's going. It keeps getting better and better, and I can't wait for the full release of it. But think of what that saves you as well. I mean, it'll save you a lot of time, it'll save you a lot of effort, and it'll save you from having to hire someone in the future to format your book because it is serviceable. Now, it's really primarily geared for text-based books. So you don't really have to think about it if you're doing a heavy graphic-oriented book, such as like a children's book with, that has edge-to-edge graphics and things like that. It's probably not going to work for you. But for the majority of self-published authors that have text-based books, it's a real godsend. So that is a super advanced tool that Kindle Create offers through the KDP self-publishing system. And they do offer your listing on Amazon. Why would you not want to be on Amazon? They command so much of the market, it's frightening. I think I saw something that they handle like 42% of all online book sales. It might even be higher than that. Um, that's not market share, that's market dominance. And in terms of ebooks, it's about 89% of the ebook market. That is crazy. Why wouldn't I want my books there? I definitely want that in the Amazon system because that's where people are buying books. So then the argument comes up for many people that, oh, Amazon, they don't work with bookstores well. The bookstores, or I guess a better way to say it is the bookstores don't want to deal with Amazon for buying self-published books to sell to their authors. Okay, I'm going to say, so what? Because it really, let's think about the whole bookstore arena right now. Only about 10% of book sales are handled through independents. The rest are probably handled through the likes of Barnes and Noble. And in my area, now, my area, I live in the greater Chicagoland area. From what I saw of the recent population estimates for the entire Chicago metro span, it's about 9.5 million people. We used to have a ton of bookstores, but now it's really, in my particular suburban area, it's down to about 3. And that's Barnes and Noble, and then a pretty community based bookstore, although they seem to be really focused on children's books because every time I walk by one of their or drive by, I always think it's a kid's store. And then there's another super small independent that I know of that, in my opinion, would be what I would call a hobby store, kind of like a hobby farm. You know, it's somebody who really loves books, and so it's really stuff they just love, but, you know, it's not, you know, making they have just like one-off store. That's the only, and then a couple used bookstores and a half-price books, which is all used books as well. Now the Barnes and Nobles in my area, I have 3, only 3 within a 10-mile radius. Think about that, a 10-mile radius of my house. I have only 3 Barnes and Noble, and the one that's pretty close to me is pretty quiet most of the time. You know, I don't really have to wait in line. It's busy around the holidays, of course, but it's, you know, there's just not a lot of shopping going on in there. For my particular type of books, there's maybe a couple shelves of it. That's it. So I'm not going there. I'm going to Amazon. And I think a lot of my customers are too. Now, of course, it depends on your market, but in my area, I mean, it just doesn't make sense for me to be concerned about the bookstore market. And I'm in a large metro area where there's tons of people. Now there's, you know, a lot of little independents, you know, popping up here and there throughout the Chicagoland area, but none of them are, you know, big groups at all. So I don't really care if my book is in a bookstore, and I harp on this all the time. And the chances, I saw one article from a friend of mine on her blog where I guess the chances of your book getting into a bookstore, even if you're, I guess, traditionally published, is in the single digits, maybe even as low as 1%. So I really am not concerned at all if it's in a bookstore. So the concern that bookstores don't want to deal with Amazon for self-published books is irrelevant. And then if you talk about, well, libraries or school libraries, that sort of thing, okay, that's a possibility too, I guess, to be concerned about. But again, the school has to know about your book. Okay, I'm not, you know, I can't even talk about this anymore. I just get so riled up with these people who are so concerned about the whole bookstore thing. Bookstores are dwindling because nobody's shopping in them. They're going to Amazon or other places online. And as I was just kind of mentioning earlier, the ebook market, you know, people are saying, oh, well, I'm so worried. my ebook, if I publish on Kindle, my Kindle ebook won't be on the Barnes and Noble site for the Nook device. Again, I don't care. The reason why is because Amazon and Kindle has about, I think I saw an 89% or very close there to share of the ebook arena. Do you know how much the Nook has? 2%. And then the other one is like Kobo, and that has about, I guess, 12, 13%. Oh, and I think I misspoke there. I think in terms of the devices, I think Amazon's, Kindle reader is 84%. Well, close enough. It's market dominance. Let's just be fair with that. So again, I just don't care. It just doesn't make any sense. So, all right. So let's look at IngramSpark. IngramSpark, for those of you that don't know, IngramSpark isn't just a fly-by-night self-publishing platform. They are a division of a mega book distributor, probably the most powerful book distribution network in the United States. They're huge. And so they work with bookstores and whatnot. They work with all of them. And there was a smaller competitor that just went out of the retail bookstore service business. And so now Ingram is even more powerful. Well, they didn't go out of business, but they are concentrating on other markets. Let's put it like that. So now Ingram is even more powerful. So they're big. They're really, really big. And they do work with bookstores. So that is something, if you are still concerned as a self-published author, you certainly want to be considering probably Ingram over KDP. Now, the other thing that Ingram offers is hardcover book production and saddle stitch book production. Now, both of those, neither one of those book bindings is available on KDP, at least at this point. Maybe one day, but I don't know. It's hard to say if it will or will not. But if you absolutely need a hardcover edition, you want to be considering a group like IngramSpark. Hardcover editions are very expensive to produce. And I think the bigger question is, do you really need a hardcover? I would say that most books don't. There are some, it is a very durable binding, so there may be some validity in considering it for maybe a children's book or something that gets a lot of wear and tear. But for the most part, yeah, nobody needs a hardcover. But if you must have a hardcover, IngramSpark might be your choice. Now, Ingram is not free. They have a charge per title, and I think it's, as of this recording, I think it's $29 for just the ebook. I think it's $49 for the print, and then I think if you do both, it's $79. But I think there's some specials going on, which might. I think I saw a special for like $49 for both print and ebook. Again, you got to look at the IngramSpark website to see what the current pricing is. It's still not a lot of money. So, I don't think that would be a factor that would completely put them out of the running as a consideration for a self-publishing platform at all. It's certainly reasonable. Now, you do have to provide your own ISBN numbers. Now, the debate goes on. I'm thinking of doing a separate podcast just on the ISBN debate. You do have to provide your own ISBN numbers, and you have to remember that if you do both print and ebook, you have to have a separate ISBN number for each. So that will cost you, maybe a couple $100. So, it starts adding up over time, and they don't really provide like a tool like Kindle Create. They don't have a tool like that to help you with formatting. You kind of have to know what you're doing with IngramSpark. they're really basically a service to publishers. So you have to act more like a publisher. And that means you have to kind of know what you're doing. Now, they do have some tools and resources and guides and things like that that can help you with your formatting and getting your book ready for publication. So they do have those, but it's still, it's a it's I don't know, I think I looked at the guide and I think it was like 30 some pages. So you better be willing to read and figure out what you're doing first. So you really kind of need to know what you're doing with IngramSpark. But again, they're a great organization. There's nothing wrong with them, and because of their um, relationships with bookstores that are non-Amazon, uh, certainly if that's a big factor for you, IngramSpark is the choice for you. Now, here's the thing where I'm confused why authors want to do both. They say, well, I'll do my ebook on KDP, and then I'll do my hardcover and print book on IngramSpark, and why? IngramSpark can do it all. They can publish your ebook. They can publish your print book in multiple formats. Why, if you absolutely have to have the hardcover and saddle stitch and all that kind of stuff, and you're worried about bookstores, why are you messing around with KDP? Now, the only thing I can figure is why they want to do both is because they want to jump on with the KDP Select benefits, such as free book promos or countdown deals. I I just think it causes so much confusion. And you have to remember that if you do want to publish your ebook on IngramSpark, you cannot have published your book on KDP 12 for I think it's like 12 months prior. You got to look at IngramSpark. Same thing goes for like Apple Books and things like that too. So you have to really look at the specifications on IngramSpark to make sure that it's everything you want. And I would say just let them do it all, because your book will get on Amazon anyway, because that is one of their online partners. They do serve Amazon. So why are you doing both again? I just don't understand it at all. And I think it takes a lot. It takes money. It takes effort. There's a lot of confusion. I say pick and stick with whatever platform you want to use or think is the best for your particular self-publishing efforts. So this goes back to really evaluating what your goals are for self-publishing and evaluating your market. So, rant ended. But I hope you found it helpful in trying to figure out which one might be right for you. And if you found this helpful, I would really appreciate it if you would wander over to Apple Podcasts and give the Heidi Thorne Show a nice rating and review. And while you're on Apple Podcasts, don't forget to subscribe to the Heidi Thorne Show so you don't miss an episode. Not on Apple, no problem. I'm on Stitcher and Podbean. And if you want to listen on your Alexa, you can listen to the Heidi Thorne Show with the AnyPod skill. And if you like the video better, no problem there either. You just have to go to my Heidi Thorne YouTube channel and subscribe, and you will get all of my video podcasts. My books, as you might expect, are on Amazon. My print books, my ebooks, and my audiobooks. But if you want just the audiobooks, I'm on Audible and Apple Books. If you'd like to connect with me, my website is simply HeidiThorne.com, and I would really appreciate it if you would share the Heidi Thorne Show with your friends on social media. Thank you so much for listening and for your support. I'll look forward to talking with you again in the next episode. And in the meantime, have a great day.